going. So.
Okay.
This is a backup. Jane, I don't know if you got yourself settled, but Kate's recording it this way if for nothing else, we'd have this.
Yeah, that's fine. I see in the chat box it says recording has started.
Okay. Yeah.
I got it, Liz. It's working.
Cool. Okay. Thanks. Well,
okay.
Got a double.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. He saved the day, as always. All right. You're going to let people in that are waiting in the lobby?
Yeah, I was going to wait till we got a little.
That's perfect. I just want to know who's doing what. Okay. Because I don't know who everybody is.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to just volume out.
All right. Thanks, Jane. When you, James, you tell me when you're ready. I'll start letting people in. I'm waiting for the emails or the calls or something saying, what am I supposed to do?
So no time like the present. I mean, we're a minute out pretty much.
Okay.
Start letting them in.
Ladies.
Hello.
How are y'all today?
I am great. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. I'm very happy that it's almost Friday.
I know. Very happy.
We're going to wait just a couple minutes, let some other people join in. We had quite a few say they were coming, so.
Liz, when you're ready, then just tell me you're ready and I'll hit the record button.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it.
Do you want me to send out the team's reminder really quick?
Who was that?
It's Lily.
Oh, hey, Lily. I can do that, or you can if you'd like.
Okay.
Are you doing it?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Freeman,
Hello.
how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, but I don't think with this system here, I don't think we're gonna have that many people on. I thought we were
Well-
gonna do a normal Zoom.
We can't do Zoom through the town's not set up to do Zoom. It's Teams. That's why we sent out that. It's the same kind of thing. It's just a different software.
Oh, I understand. I've used it before, but I don't
I
think
think we talked about a Teams meeting.
I don't think most people were listening.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Well, the meeting's recorded, so worst case.
Yeah, we'll have it recorded and it's being shown on YouTube. So I guess it can be pulled back up on YouTube. Is that right, Kate? Okay. Okay. So at least we'll have that. And then people can follow up with questions if necessary.
I won't do my camera.
Well, sometimes the camera slows things down too. What do you think, Miss? Oh wait, somebody else. Who was that? Waiting in lobby. Oh. Ken, were you in there twice?
Yes, I'm getting off of my cell phone.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute. You're already here. What are you doing?
No, I'm closing out because I realized I want to hold my phone this entire time.
Well, pardon?
I didn't want to hold my phone. I realized that after I logged in on my phone.
I did the same thing yesterday with the meeting. I was like, this was a bad choice. I didn't have a choice to get out. What do you think, Ms. Johnson? It's almost 5 after. I hate to waste our, I mean, not that, I hate to, we've only got so much time.
We can go ahead and get started.
Okay, let me see. I've got somebody. Not sure who this is. Who just joined in?
Is now joining.
I'm sorry, is that Ed?
Yes, it is.
Okay, just got your phone number. Okay, just trying to make sure I got who I got. All right. Thank you for joining in.
No problem.
So you think we can go ahead, Ms.
Yes.
Johnson? Okay.
Okay.
So ladies who are recording, if y'all want to get that going, I'm going to go ahead and share just real briefly. I hope y'all can see it. Can you see the agenda for today?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yes.
Just so that, so that we all kind of know what we're doing. We're having this meeting today just by Teams so that we can try to get some information that will help folks with this survey that's, I'm sure James will tell us when the deadline is, but it's coming up related to some improvements related to the 6 Mile Cultural Trail. So just want to make sure we've got questions answered and information out there. So that's what we're doing today. And so I am going to turn it over to James, who's going to do our presentation. I have not had anybody call in that I'm aware of for the public, the public wanting to speak. We have not had anybody call into that number, so I'm assuming we have no public comment at this time. And
All right. Can everyone? I'm James Aton. I'm the project manager for this segment of trail project, as well as the Mount Pleasant Way master plan. And if they keep me around long enough, hopefully I'll see at least a portion of it done. Can everyone see my screen here? It's got the 6 Mile Cultural Heritage Trail.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. So I'll start off. Thank you all for coming here. I'm sorry we're in a different kind of format. I know we're trying to fold your organization in here to give you all this information. I know a few of you were actually part of the stakeholder meeting that we held about a month ago. So just as a preface to the meeting, these are the same slides, the exact same slides as was presented in the stakeholder meeting, because we're about at the same stage as we were then as far as percent of design complete, which is about 30%. So I think probably the easiest way to work through this, if you guys are fine with it, is I'm going to go through really quick, spend a short amount of time going over the Mount Pleasant Way concept as a whole. So that's the town-wide network, and then segue into this specific project segment for a little bit longer and in more detail. And then at the end, I think we can ask questions. I just think that structure in this format will help everyone kind of hear, and keep pace with the short amount of time that we have, if that's okay with everyone.
It's fine.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, James, did we want to do the hand raising? If you got a question that's urgent for some reason,
I think,
like.
So up here in the corner, you'll see the chat. This is the chat box. I think if you have a comment, or a question, just so that we can go to you in a specific order, just say, I have a question, type it in. And as we get to the end of the presentation here, Liz will help kind of point out who's up first. I guess to start off, my information is up here in the corner, in the top part of this chat. Obviously, we have a limited amount of time here, and some folks may not have been able to join. So at any time, this project's open. So is the Mount Pleasant Way overall project. I'm here to answer questions, comments, concerns beyond this meeting here, and other ones I'm sure we'll have in the future. So I will jump right in. So first off, the Mount Pleasant Way project, as some of you know, this project is a town-wide. I'll just go ahead and move to the spine route here. That is really kind of what came out of our master plan. So to go back in time into history, somewhere around like the 2016 timeframe, when we were beginning work on the comprehensive master plan process that was started really in 2018. This idea of a town-wide separated use facility for bikes and pedestrian was brought forth. So it was, initially dubbed the Mount Pleasant Way, and that's sort of the name that was adopted through this master planning process. So to be entirely clear, this is a 20+ mile separated use facility. So it's going to range between anywhere to an 8-foot minimum to upwards of a 12-foot wide multi-use path system, intended again for bikes, peds, scooters, runners, strollers, dog walkers, really any kind of mode at this point besides motorized vehicles. That's, that will include golf carts, and we can certainly talk an entire other couple of hours about that specifically, but to kind of get to the meat of this. This is the graphic that came out and the preferred route that came out of all of our analysis. And so we had a public meeting. We had a video come out in February of 2020 that told everyone in the town and elsewhere that this project was coming. In March of 2020, we actually had an in-person kickoff meeting that we had a number of folks show up to. I realized that was kind of right at the beginning of the pandemic, so we didn't have quite as much of a turnout, but we quickly pivoted to online. In October, we submitted a virtual charrette that also included a survey and ability for folks to input on the path as a whole. And then in December, we took that to Transportation and our council, and they reviewed it and sort of tentatively adopted it. And then in January of 2021, we took that same presentation and sort of specific segments, including the one that we'll talk about today, to the council retreat, and they sort of gave us the go ahead to move forward. So again, that's this path. I'll share these slides as once we wrap up this meeting, but this is one of the important slides I think to look at. And there's another graphic once we get to this specific project that'll highlight this more, but really this is the area we're talking about here. So this is the cultural core of Mount Pleasant as outlined in the master plan. And I like to show this slide. So The dark green is segments of the trail that are not yet, nothing's funded, but really have no plans in the future. The light teal here are segments that already exist. So this is Sweetgrass Basket Parkway. This is Billy Swales. And then the light green are other roadway projects or other projects that are imminently coming down the pipeline. So this is the US 17 to Rifle Range Connector Road. That will go to construction. We anticipate the 1st of 2022. Then you have the Billy Swales 4B segment, which is again coming down the pipeline for sort of early to middle of 2022 to go to construction. So you can start to see by this map that we're really just naturally generating this path in the center of town here, in this cultural core as outlined again in the comprehensive plan. So that's one of the reasons, as I'll get into here shortly, why we selected this area among a few other reasons moving forward. So there's other things, secondary routes, community connections. And again, I can, if you want to, I really want to focus mainly on this pilot project, because that's, you know, this is what was requested by your organization, you know, the committee here to talk about specifically. So again, I'm more than happy after this meeting and in the coming weeks and months to talk to you about Mount Pleasant Way and how excited we are about that and sort of the happenings. But I really want to focus this meeting on the pilot project. So the 6 Mile Cultural Heritage Trail. So this is the segment outlined in red here that we're going to be talking about specifically today. And it runs from the now existing Rifle Range Road, Rifle Range Trail Park entrance and parking, which was completed back in April of this year. And it runs 2,400 feet within the 6 Mile community to 6 Mile Road. So again, you can kind of see on this map these other projected projects along US 17 to Rifle Range Connector, Billy Swales 4B. Don't worry about this 6 Mile. That's this was a concept at the time. We've got Sweetgrass Basket over here, Billy Swales 4A over here, and then a tiny little loop over here that we're working hopefully with the county to close that gap. So again, just to highlight one of the reasons why we selected this area. Another reason is, as part of the Liberty Hill development over here, the town acquired and has been holding $200,000 for transportation improvements within the 6 Mile community that benefit the 6 Mile community. So this project, when we first initially talked about if we could use these funds or not for that, you know, when we vetted it and it absolutely can be used. It is considered a transportation improvement for this area. So with that, we kind of wanted to show a few graphics here on, you know, what this connection is. I mean, there are, as you very well know, no pedestrian or bicycle infrastructure. There's no sidewalks. There's not really even a shoulder in a good majority of this area. It's a nice big swale that we're working with DOT to come out and maintain. So there's just not really a safe place. So there's an imminent need for this project to come forward. And it's obviously going to be part of the larger Mount Pleasant Way network. So immediate benefit to the 6 Mile community, and then ultimately to the 6 Mile as we build upon this one segment to the 6 Mile community and the town as a whole. So you can kind of start to see with this connection, you know, there's, you know, essentially a 10-minute walk from these homes within this area up to the commercial zones here. As we complete these other segments, you can look at the school over here, the Lang and Jenny Moore, the other commercial zones up here at the Oakland Shopping Center, Town Center over here. So really just wanted to give some context on, you know, an average walking speed and how this system is going to start to spur out and connect pretty quickly to a lot of these points that we defined within our master plan as attractors of areas where people want to be able to walk and bike, go to the grocery store, get a gallon of milk, go out to eat, go ride, you know, your bike or walk to school with your kids, go see historical features down to the south over here with Palmetto Fort. So we're really kind of connecting and tying into all of those things, and this graphic shows that. So how do we get to this point? This 30% design. So obviously this one just kind of naturally popped itself out. It was high within the ranking of our overall Mount Pleasant segments. We had money from Liberty Hill. We have some money for right-of-way or easement acquisitions if we need it from Greenbelt. We have an existing park that had some grant money from the state to develop this park area up here, which if you haven't been out there is really nice. We're working to get some signage out there, and it's about just shy of a mile loop and really cool passive park that I recommend going out. So we did a field investigation, looked at sort of the constraints and potential challenges with this project. Obviously, there's existing swales out here. There's the old Christ Church lines here that, create some pinch points. There's existing features with homes in this area. This is Mr. Robinson's property here, which we've spoken to, and he's got those nice decorative pillars. You've got the LifeBridge Church sign. So we started to, kind of go out into the field and figure out these pinch points and sort of the challenges that this project will bring. This graphic is straight from the master plan and shows really to the north of this project segment, but very, very applicable to the 6 Mile Cultural Heritage Trail on what we envision the trail to look like generally. Of course, features will change. Alignment might be a little bit more winding and to avoid, again, some of those challenges I just talked about, but just a general idea of a before and after of what we're looking for with this project. So to jump right into the alignment, the segment here again is proposed from 6 Mile Road up to the existing parking facility for the Rifle Range Trails Park. It's 2,400 linear feet. It's proposed to be a 10-foot concrete path. And we're, attempting as much as possible to stay within the existing right-of-way. Frankly, that's just not something that's feasible through this alignment. Even with a 5-foot sidewalk, you would still need to acquire an easement, about a minimum of a 3 to 4 foot easement on these properties, and that's just going back to the geometry and features of this roadway. Edge of curb, you have deep swales. That eats up a lot of that available right-of-way to put a path like this in without going into a full-scale drainage project, which becomes incredibly expensive. So this was the general alignment. There wasn't much variation that we could look at besides the church property, which we've coordinated with them and have come to a very agreeable and acceptable alignment within their property. And then really one of the cool things we wanted to highlight, so I know we didn't talk about it, but we have 4 core values with the Mount Pleasant Way, and that's active living, nature, history, and culture. So we have the ability really within this whole project limits to touch on or connect to all 4 of those things. Active living, you've got the park over here. That's a great place to go for a run. That kind of doubles down as that nature aspect. When you talk about history, you've got the Christ Church lines here. This path will connect to existing facilities that could take you all the way out to Palmetto Fort Trail, more history. And then really the main one to touch on this segment is culture. I mean, steeped 6 Mile community, the name, it says it itself, 6 Mile Cultural Heritage Trail, steeped in culture. And we looked at this as an opportunity for the residents in the community to really come together and tell the story of the community through this parklet that we're proposing in front of the Magnolia Village HOA here. So that's actually an HOA property, and we've had conversations. They seem very amenable to working with us on that. And again, this survey that's posted is really catered more towards the parklet designs. There's an option A shown here, an option B shown here. And really talking about the kind of amenities that the kind of amenities that folks want to see. Really talking about unique ways to tell the history and of the 6 Mile community. I know Kate, we're working with her and the Historic Commission to start doing research and developing, a historical plaque that you've seen similarly to other areas within the town. But we thought we could do more than just that. And I think that, these parks, through a feature like that is shown here, with some sort of structure, that can present a mural that, either highlights the 6 Mile community. I mean, we're very open at this point and willing to work and really take any ideas for artwork on the side of that. Well, that's one of the questions within the survey is, would you like a structure? If so, kind of where, and elaborate on that. So I think there's great opportunity. When we had our stakeholder meeting, I think it was you, Miss Lily, that brought up a really neat concept that you saw in an airport one time of sort of maybe on the internal side of this, having an area where you could have a storyboard that, has firsthand accounts of family history in the area that could include, little trinkets and things like that really bring home, make it feel like the community has a full investment and input into the project here. So again, I've kind of talked probably too much here, and we've got really option A, option B, and then the general amenities that folks want to see. And I'm happy to get off my soapbox here and take any questions that you have about. Really, let's try to keep it focused on this specific segment, and we can kind of go from there. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Lily.
Yes. No, actually, that was not my statement in the meeting, so I don't want to take the meeting. But my
Lily,
statement.
hang on. We got a lot of. If you can mute when you're not.
My statement pertained to the hub for the waterworks area, just to ensure that there was no additional flooding. There is currently flooding in that area. And my other statement pertained to what the residents, what did they feel about the project? Have you had an opportunity to speak with all of them, and are they okay with it?
Yeah, so to touch base on your first question related to drainage. So we've actually been in touch with Mount Pleasant Waterworks about this specific area of their entrance, and they do actually have a design that they've worked on that they were intending to implement, and are really going to kind of fold that design into this project to make sure that the drainage in that specific area is going to be addressed. To kind of elaborate more on drainage throughout this whole segment, as we move along the alignment here, kind of north of this section, we are going to redelineate those swales that have just gotten filled in over time, and I'm sure you've seen flooding out there, to try to really address this systemic flooding issue that's out there from just a lack of maintenance. So that, I hope, answers your first question. And the second would be that, yes, one of the big things that came out from your comment and Mr. Freeman's in this initial meeting was, hey, when do you guys, you should reach out to these property owners sooner, get their input. So I will say we have reached out to all property owners probably a week or less after having that stakeholder meeting. We've heard back from about half of them. We did send certified mailed letters, so that we've got a record that we did reach out to those community members. So we've heard back from the church, we've heard back from the Magnolia HOA, we've heard back from the Brewers, and we've heard back from Mr. Robinson. We have not yet heard back from the Maziques or Miss, let me see, who was it there at the very end? Miss Dawson. We've not heard back from them at this point, but are, again, probably will send out another notice. And as we move forward through this project, certainly any sort of easements or right of way necessary, our agents would reach out to them and ensure that they're contacted and have a chance to provide input if, say, they lost this and ended up throwing away that initial letter.
Can you hear me? This is George Freeman.
Yes, sir.
What if the residents do not want the path going on their property?
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, the hope is that, they can see the benefit of this. Again, from those that have reached back out, which is about half, have been very enthusiastic about this project. So we hope that these remaining folks will be excited, or at least attentive to hearing more about the project.
No, my question is, what if they are adamantly against having it on their property?
Yes, sir. Okay, well, I mean, if that's the case, then the town, will likely move forward with acquiring an easement on that property as necessary. Again, this has gone through our council.
So what you're saying is that the town will be coming through and condemning people probably to put this pathway in? That they're against it?
If that's necessarily at the end of the day, if that's what it takes, we've got support of the council. They've reviewed this. We would not be outside of any existing easement. There's an existing overhead Berkeley Electric easement through here. As part of this path alignment, we're going to be improving driveways for all the folks.
You don't need to get into all that. You've answered my question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I don't want to put any fear or concerns out there that haven't yet been realized. The folks that have responded, again, many of which are 6 Mile community members, are in support of this. So I'd just like to make that clear.
I'm just concerned about the fact that you're going to force something into the community. That's the only thing I don't like.
Yes, sir. And I agree. There's definitely some concern related to that. As I mentioned initially, even to put a sidewalk through here would require an easement on their property. So I really want to make that clear. And that's that's been a drive from the community from the get-go with this money that was allocated by the impact assessment for Liberty Hill. There is a need, an imminent need.
I understand what you're saying, but since I'm the individual that made the request, this is very annoying to me, because every time we make a request for something, we get something different than what we request. And I was annoyed at this survey also, because I thought if you were going to do a survey, I would think you would have surveyed the 6 Mile community first, because this is our neighborhood. We should have the say on what goes on in our neighborhood before the town of Mount Pleasant says what they want to do in our neighborhood.
Yes, sir. And that was the intent of the stakeholder meeting, where we reached out and had select members like yourself show up to partake in this initial meeting. And then the survey, again, is open to the entire 6 Mile community as well as the town.
That survey went out to the entire town, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. As it rightfully should. We have a responsibility as this being a segment of the larger Mount Pleasant Way, and not only just notifying these folks in this specific area.
Okay, now with this, I know you said we just going to talk about 6 Mile again. I don't like the idea that we're being told even what we can talk about. But you started with
at the end of the day, this meeting was specifically put together to talk about this specific project. So again, I'm happy to meet with you as much as you want to.
No. We're going to say this right now while we're in this meeting. You said this thing is about history and having people riding through the town of Mount Pleasant and getting the history of Mount Pleasant. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, I was born and raised here, and Pitt Street is the real history of the town of Mount Pleasant, and I don't see the bike trail going down Pitt Street. You have the old drugstore, you have the Hibbin House, you have the old police and town hall, you have the old bridge, the original bridge that took you to Sullivan Island. That's a park now. Is that all in the trail?
Yes, sir. So if you look at your screen here, I've just zoomed in. I'm glad you pointed that out. So if you look at this blue line here, this is Wilden, Royal, Pitt Street. That all connects as a secondary spine route as well as community connection. So yeah, that area is certainly built.
But that's not in the original trail.
Yes, sir, it is. This is the ultimate trail. This is the ultimate end-all be-all goal of the Mount Pleasant Way here, is to have the spine route, the secondary routes, and the quiet streets incorporated. So that area is incorporated within this.
I'm confused because we started off with just those light green lines, and now you're showing the blue line as secondary. I'm saying if they're part of the original, there shouldn't be no secondary.
Well, yes, sir. So the point of the spine route is to commute people through the main corridors of the town, the Rifle Range, the Mathis Ferry, the Long Point, to these other secondary routes where then they can, spur off and go see other features of the town, other historical areas, Pitt Street Bridge, all the other town's recreation facilities and things like that. So
Okay, so this is what you were talking about, Ms. Boyle, about the trail going to Sneevon?
yes, sir. So yeah, this is
No, I
the
was talking
quiet
to,
street
yeah,
segment.
I was talking to
through
Ms. Boyle.
Pardon me?
I was talking to Ms. Boyle.
Okay.
She
Sorry,
made
I
a-
didn't realize I was muted. I'm sorry, I
Oh.
apologize.
No, but we
I
were
was
in the
talking,
meeting.
I was trying to answer you. Yes,
Oh.
that's what I was talking about. And then up into Long Point and through, what is this, Walking Dog over here on the left,
Yeah.
you know,
But
just,
what I'm saying though is, I don't understand this secondary stuff. If we have a master trail, why is it all that exposed right now as the main path of the trail?
Yeah,
What's
and that's a great question. So I'll answer that. So the spine route itself was developed based off of this attraction to specific areas of the town. Think of the spine route as sort of the US 17, if you will, of the trail system. Its main intent is really to get people from point A to point B in a safe manner. The secondary routes in blue are sort of, again, those more scenic routes, like, you know, you've got.
I understand all that. That's not my point. My point is, if we're going to present this to the town of Mount Pleasant, people should see all the routes, because my thing is, I would like to receive the reactions of these neighborhoods where you talk about these secondary routes, because I've lived here all my life, and I know how the majority of the people in Mount Pleasant react. And if they saw this route, they would not be in favor of this bike path.
Well, yes, sir. Well, all I can say is that we've gone through this master plan process. We received over 2,300 surveys for the Mount Pleasant Way master plan.
But
that
I'm saying
includes all of this.
Yeah, that included everything that you are seeing on this screen right now. I would highly recommend to go to the town's website. If you go to tompsc.com.
Unless you changed it, the only thing I've ever seen out there is that first map that you put out.
Okay, well, here I'm on the town website right now. Here's the story map. If you click on that, it is a great interactive thing. I believe I've sent this to you before. I included it within the meeting minutes of this stakeholder meeting. So I'd reference those. You can see as we run through here.
Keep going. But I'm waiting for the map to show up.
Well, here we go. Community connections. Well, you get my internet working. So here's the main spline route. If you go to the next route, that shows your secondary routes. If you go to the next map.
Right there. You keep saying secondary is what I'm saying. People, it's like they'll start with this first one and the secondary might never materialize.
The intent is to absolutely build this entire network. You know, council has reviewed this.
Well, I'll let you know what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say right now. What I'm saying right now, what we're looking at right now, what should be publicized to the town, and not as first and secondary. It should be publicized as just one map, not no primary, secondary, just one map. This is that everybody in town of Mount Pleasant knows this is where these things are going through all these different communities.
Yep. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but it is published. It's right in front of us.
I'm saying it should not be published as a main and secondary. It should only be just one map that we're looking at.
Yes, sir. So again, when we went through the master plan process, there are corridors that are going to just naturally see a heavier volume of users, and as such, we want to prioritize the spending. So again, you know, think of this as just a tier of precedence of how we would like to accomplish this. Obviously, this is a huge project, probably $30 to $40 million project. And the old adage of how do you eat an elephant? Small bites. So the first small bites are the main connections that'll, you know, get people from point A to point B. The secondary routes.
We don't have to beat a dead horse. I made my suggestion. If you accept it or you don't accept it, that's fine. It's just something that myself personally, I will be pursuing, because this piecemeal showing people, gets people hooked, thinking they're not going to be affected until later on. And by the time it gets to them, they'll raise bloody murder and not have it go through their community, where our community will already be affected. And from what I see from this map here and the way you talk about it, I see where this will not be just residents of Mount Pleasant riding around. You will have tourists riding through our community and creating all kind of havoc and trash in our neighborhood.
Mr. Freeman, thank you for your point. Miss Williams has been waiting a long time with her hand up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you, James?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. So I've been taking notes during this whole discussion, and I have a few questions, if you don't mind answering them.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you said it's not feasible to stay in the right of way, and that there will be easements that are needed from residents of the community. And as you were discussing with Mr. Freeman, it almost sounded like there would be some type of eminent domain that would be enforced. And this is just, so if we can just have a little bit of banter here. So if you could answer that, because it sounded like when you were speaking with Mr. Freeman that you've not heard back from all residents. All residents are not in agreement, and all residents have not given you permission or sold you an easement to the property. So are you saying that the town of Mount Pleasant would take eminent domain for a trail or a sidewalk?
So to answer that question, again, we've spoken with, as far as it's concerned, with linear feet of this 2,400 foot segment. We've spoken with over 2/3 of, that segment length. I don't want to put the cart before the horse and start to talk theoreticals necessarily when we haven't even spoken with these other properties. Again, the Maziques and Mr. Dawson down here. We've spoken with the church, they're on board. Mr. Robinson, they're on board. The Brewers, they're on board. The town owns this property. Magnolia Village is on board. Mount Pleasant Waterworks is obviously on board. So when we talk about, as far as a total percentage of the trail of folks that have heard about, that have responded to our letter, I mean, certainly they are in support of this project. So I don't want to get the idea that this is something that the property owners themselves thus far have put up any kind of opposition to. So again, I hate to throw out theoreticals when, again, we haven't heard back from those specific property owners.
I'm going to pause you for a second. Are you Mr. Tell me how to pronounce your last name. Do you want me to call you James or Aton? Aton? How's your name?
Aton. Yes,
Aton. Okay. So you skirted the answer. I am a very direct person, right? So I ask questions that pretty much require a yes or no answer. So I heard what you said and I understood what you said, but you're deflecting from the actual answer. So should you hear back from, let's say you have 4 residents that you haven't heard from, and those 4 residents are in opposition of the project, are you saying that if they are in opposition and not a willing participant in your project, will you then take their property from them, regardless of whether if they say no, will you then enforce eminent domain and take it? Or will you enforce some type of legal action in order to complete your projects, is what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
James, let me try to answer that question. And my name is Brad Morrison. I'm the director of the department for James.
Uh-huh.
And I think, I can answer your question directly, but I think everything has context. Okay. And I think what James is trying to say is we have not heard from these folks. And generally, in any process the town has done for a public project, we follow the process. And the process being that we always want to eventually make contact. If we can't, then we can't get any feedback. So if ultimately we want to get feedback, and if we do get feedback and we can understand concerns, if we can mitigate those concerns, i.e. move alignments, not get on property, whatever, we're going to look at all those things. But ultimately, if your question is the town able to exercise eminent domain? Yes, it is. And it would if the direction of our council is that's what they're going to do, because they ultimately make that decision.
So
that's an answer to your question.
Mr. Morrison, from what I understand, eminent domain is, let's just say, for instance, and I will give you an example of Highway 17 and the properties across from Town Center when you guys had to widen Highway 17, right? That is, you take eminent domain and you force people out of their homes and widen the highway because that is a benefit to, quote unquote, the entire community as far as a necessity, right? We went from a 2-lane highway to 4, 6-lane or whatever 17 is, right? 6 lanes. So I understand like the functions of eminent domain, and that was for the betterment and the improvement and the, the eventual evolution of a community where we have an exponential amount of growth here in Mount Pleasant. So obviously 17 needed to be widened, and that's what you guys did. Now, a trail or a park is not something that is quote unquote a necessity. So are you telling me that Mount Pleasant would then force people to give up their property in order to accommodate your park and your sidewalk, your trail? Because this is not a sidewalk that was, if you look at you're calling it, what is it called? The cultural, 6 Mile Cultural Trail. You're including this name of cultural into the project. And these people obviously culturally have been there for decades, a long time. And it was never a necessity to have a sidewalk because it was a predominantly Black community. So there was no necessity for a sidewalk similar to Snowden community. There's no sidewalk inside of Snowden community, but there's a sidewalk on the outside of Snowden community on Long Point Road because Long Point Road has multicultural people traveling on it now. So are you saying that because now it's a necessity for a path for people to jog and to walk? I'm pretty sure are we calling a trail and a sidewalk a necessity now?
I haven't said that I haven't said that you're using that word necessity. What this is, and by state law, what the eminent domain law applies to is a public project, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has public purpose, and if it meets that standard, then then it's eligible to use the statute. So, I'm not the attorney, but if you want to, if we want to get more information on that, I'll be happy to provide it. But as far as we're concerned, at least at this point, this is a public project for public purpose.
Right, but it's not. Okay, you said you're not an attorney, and I understand you, and I won't beat that dead horse. But as far as I'm concerned, or as far as my knowledge extends or goes, eminent domain is for things that are necessary. A highway is necessary, right? Hence why, if you look historically, most highways run through Black communities because, that's disrupting the least of, you're not decreasing property values exponentially because it's going through Black communities. But I don't see how. Let me give you an analogy, Mr. Morrison. If you owned property and I, as a municipality such as Town of Mount Pleasant, put out a plan that they have put public and had engineers and all these other things come forth and put forth this plan that is spelled out, drawn out, everything. And your property is involved, sir. If your property is involved, let's say it's 30 feet of your property, and Mount Pleasant puts out this plan, and you're looking at the plan like, okay, well, this plan involves my property. How does the Town of Mount Pleasant put out publicly a plan that involves other people's properties that they have not, number one, spoken to about, and number two, gotten permission to use and or purchased from them. That's like me coming on your land and being like, oh, you know, this would be a great spot to put XYZ. Let me go ahead and get this done and put this out there. But I haven't spoken to the property.
Ask me a question. I'm not really sure if I'm following you. If you have a question, you just asked.
That is a question. How do you put out a plan that involves other people's property without speaking to them first?
Brad
is now exiting.
Yes, I don't know who's speaking, but I'll defer to whoever's speaking.
It's Liz. I think, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Ms. Williams, you know, I take your point, but at the same time, the town is required by state law to implement and to develop and implement a comprehensive plan, which does just that. It shows things like this Mount Pleasant Way, future parks, future schools, future commercial areas, future residential areas, that all of it goes through a public process. The public's invited to comment, but we are required, if we are going to have any sort of land use regulations, we're required to do that. It's not necessarily that, excuse me, I'm still talking. And it's the starting point of a conversation with, you know, future plans for the needs of the community. And as Mr. Morrison said, you know, obviously, you know, I would imagine there were people who thought that the widening of 17 wasn't important. Maybe they did, maybe they, I mean, you know, those of us who drive it are glad they did widen it. But as he said, the test is not necessarily necessity, but public interest, public purpose. Okay. So, you know, that's a bigger question, a bigger conversation for a different day. We've got just a few more minutes to try to address the questions of this. The whole idea was to try to get information and feedback and to answer any questions prior so that you could, you know, better include your comments on the survey. That was what we were asked to do. So if there's anything particular, you know, the ideas of what we can incorporate at the park. I mean, I know, you know, we do have, there are these bigger picture theoretical and legal ideas that, you know, we can certainly talk about another time, as James said. But the point today was to try to get information, make sure that y'all had the information you needed in this particular situation. So
I hear what you're saying, Liz, but the key words to everything that you said is that Mount Pleasant, or you're entitled a comprehensive plan. Mm-hmm. And the key word there is plan. You can make a plan, but if you make a plan and you do not have willing participants, then your plan does not go through. But what Mr. Morrison and Mr. Aton is saying, that if there are not willing participants with your plan, that you will make those participants participate.
Liz, if you don't mind me jumping in here real quick, just to give context, again, besides the other developments that are occurring in here, besides the funding here, this request for pedestrian facilities along 6 Mile Road came specifically out of conversations with the community back when the Liberty Hill development began. There was a right turn lane proposed at the approach. Yes, sir. And Mr. Freeman, as I stated before, even to install a standard ADA approved sidewalk would require an easement or right of way. So it's a moot point on whether it's 3 feet.
Because the community say.
We lost.
Are you there, Mr. Freeman?
I'm still here. You don't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, I'm saying is, just like I started earlier, that this discussion should only be with the 6 Mile community. This should not have been even gotten to the town of Mount Pleasant, where we could have vetted this thing with just the community and discuss all these things you're talking about. And the fact that if it was going to get to be a problem, the community might well just say, well, we'll just leave the community like it is. So my thing is, the community should be the first one to decide what goes into the community. As Ms. Boyle mentioned about Snee Farm. If Snee Farm, I wonder if Snee Farm knows there's a plan for a bike trail to go through their subdivision, because I'm quite sure that neighborhood would feel they should be the first one who make a decision about whether a bike trail goes through their community or not.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
we have a couple of other questions. Laura, did you have a question? You took your hand down.
So nobody thinks the community should be the first one to
Okay,
decide.
sorry.
That's okay, Laura.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, my selfie camera is broken on my phone. I just hoped that y'all would resend the link to this whole project, what's being shown on the screen, because I was just trying to go through the Town of Mount Pleasant website and was not able to find it.
I'll be glad to do that. We can, it is there.
I'll put it up right now. Here is the link to the project page. And here is the link to the storyboard that goes into much, much more detail about the Mount Pleasant Way as a whole. And we'll include those with whatever, if meeting minutes are included within this, we'll send those as well, just to be on the redundant side.
Was that it, Laura?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you'll email it, if
Yes, ma'am.
I'll
do it here as soon as we're done. Theo, did you have a question?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I just have a quick question on the 2,300 surveys that were completed. Was it just mainly for the 6 Mile community, which I doubt, or was it for the entire plan on the trail for all the communities that would be affected by the actual Mount Pleasant cultural trail? And if so, with that survey, is this going to be it? There's not going to be another survey? And if, say, Snee Farm just comes out and say, no, we don't want this, how will you proceed?
So to answer the first part of that question, so the 2,300 response survey, that was for the Mount Pleasant Way Master Plan Survey. That was opened back in October of this past year. So that was for the entire network. And that, included, as we pointed out to Mr. Freeman earlier, that included the spine route, the secondary route, and the overall Quiet Street connection. So that included everything you're seeing here and everything that is included within the link to the story map that is in the chat box now. Moving forward with other segments of the project, as I pointed out, the spine route being this segment here is the top priority of segments to tackle first. If we get to the point where we're, say Long Point is, the DOT is not going to replace that bridge anytime soon, which is why we started to look into these ideas of quiet streets. And we have to sort of have a quote unquote bypass until we're able to actually develop this trail system through the Snee Farm community. Then we'll be having these same discussions that we're having with you, I anticipate, where we will get feedback from the community as, through a stakeholder meeting like we did for this project, and then as a whole, as a survey for the whole community, because again, it's not specifically, just as this project isn't specifically intended for the 6 Mile community, it's intended for the entire community to utilize. But yeah, it would be very much the same process as we're going through now, a stakeholder meeting, a survey. And we don't have to necessarily, just as this process is unfolding, have these structured meetings. You have my information. I'm the project manager. It's my responsibility to hear your concerns, to give you answers, to work towards giving you answers at any point of the process, even when it's under construction. So, that's to have, just survey A, B, C, as opposed to just an open dialogue throughout the entirety of the project is really what we're moving towards and hoping to have as we continue these segments.
Right. I understand. I'm just asking, is the entire project already approved by the Town of Mount Pleasant? The $30 or $40 million that's allocated for sure will be for the Mount Pleasant Cultural Trail.
So the Mount Pleasant Way master plan has been adopted by council. As far as funding is concerned, given obviously, I'm sure everyone understands the troubles and tribulations of this past year. There's not any funding allocated at this point. We're seeking public-private partnerships, federal and state grants, other avenues of getting this constructed. But at this point, this segment of the 6 Mile Cultural Heritage Trail is the only segment that has money towards it because of the impact assessment of Liberty Hill to be spent specifically, I'll quote it here, to be in lieu of the turn lane, rifle range, and 6 Mile intersection. Developer agrees to pay $200,000 to the town for the specific purchase of future transportation improvements, specifically benefiting the Rifle Range Road and 6 Mile communities. That's one, again, of the several reasons why we've started here. The others being that we have these other roadway projects coming down the pipeline, US 17 to Rifle Range, Billy Swales 4B. It just makes too much sense to not try to create a loop early on in this process to again, garner support for this. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Kim, is your hand still up from before, or was that a new question?
No, I have some questions listening to these questions that have been asked. I'm going to piggyback off of Ms. Theo's question because I don't feel like you actually answered it as far as the 2,300 people that were surveyed. So I'll ask a more direct question. No, two-part as far as the 2,300 people. Who were surveyed as far as demographics, and how was that survey disseminated amongst the community? That's the first part.
Well, let me answer that one. So again, October, it was sent out. It was sent out via Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, all of the town's social media outlets. It was sent out through the Moultrie News and the Post and Courier. It was posted on the town's website. If you are a member of sort of the email blasts that we have sent out for things like road work and upcoming projects, it was sent out through that avenue. I believe we had discussions with News 5 or Live 5 and News 4. So it was published to the community and Charleston County writ large through all of those different outlets. Now, who takes the survey? I don't recall. I'm pretty sure we did not collect demographic information within that, as far as race, income, all those things. But I can circle back and certainly provide that if we did. I don't recall we could have, but again, I will get back to you on that specifically. And the survey is not, we don't create a geofence where you can only take this survey if you're physically on an IP address in Mount Pleasant. So, if if you're in Russia, you could take the survey. There's really no sort of restriction on who can take the survey. But I think the majority, they did, I believe, break it out by state, and the majority of the surveyors, like a good percentage, was within the state of South Carolina. So, it can only be anticipated that based off of the media blasts that we did, that it's residents or people in adjacent communities, such as the city of Charleston or Daniel Island. So
right. And then before you shared a slide just a minute ago. It was highlighted in pink. There was a paragraph highlighted in pink about
this guy right here.
Yes. So it says the specific purpose of future transportation improvements. So are we now including this trail under the category of transportation?
Absolutely. Bike and ped has always been under the umbrella of transportation, always.
And Ms. Williams, part of the hope for the big spine route that connects the town, the whole thing, but part of the hope is that people will be able to use this, as we said earlier, get your kids to school, get to your job, get to lunch, have an alternative, a safe alternative way of getting around town that doesn't require a car. There are a lot of people out there who don't have cars, who don't have access to cars for various reasons. They're too young, they're too old, they don't want to, they don't like the oil companies, I don't know. But there are transportation, as James said, I mean.
So do you have like stats for that, Liz? As far as you're saying, there's lots of people who don't have cars, ways to get around. Does the town actually have stats as far as the community members, residents that don't have cars to get around, what those demographics are? Because I mean, if here in South Carolina, here in Mount Pleasant, most people know that they need a vehicle to get around. And those that don't have a vehicle to get around, generally that is kind of demographically biased per se. So you're saying, and I understand that not everybody has a car, not everybody has whatever, but in the town of Mount Pleasant, like, do you have
I don't know that we,
you know, what the demographics are that for those people that you are referring to?
I don't think that we do it at this point. I mean, I think the intent is to provide an alternative. So right now there is no alternative. You have to get in a car, and to say that, you know, this trail system would be biased towards a certain demographic by providing the infrastructure for them to utilize a bike or walk safely, I'm not necessarily following the logic on that.
What I'm saying in a nutshell is that the whole project does not cater toward the community or the portion of the community that you are gearing your reason towards creating it.
I have to disagree on that because I mean, this community has no pedestrian facilities, and I don't know if you've been out there. I mean, I have walking.
But what I'm saying is, in 6 Mile, there has not been. Like I said, I've grown up in Old Village. I've grown up in Snowden community. I currently live in Whitehall Terrace. It wasn't until things become gentrified do we get sidewalks. So it all of a sudden, when things are gentrified, then there's a need for alternate means of, you know, sidewalks, trails, et cetera, because the people, this community that you're going through, they've been there since slave days, right? So it's not like these people have just moved there. They've been there. They've been children that have been raised, gone away, had children, et cetera. There's been an influx of generations that have went through these things, but it's not until the scene of the community has changed that now town of Mount Pleasant feels like we need to change it now because now there's a different demographic. So what I'm asking you in a nutshell is, have you actually talked to the people who have been there, not the people who are new to the area? Have you talked to the people who have been there? And then my problem more so, I don't have a problem with trails. I think it's wonderful. The pavilion is wonderful. I think the whole concept is wonderful, but it doesn't settle well with me when a municipality puts out a plan to the public without actually speaking to the landowners that this plan impacts. And then to sit here and hear you guys say, well, you know, we hope they'll be on board. We would love for them to be on board, but if they're not, we will proceed.
Well, again, to your point and answer it succinctly, we have reached out to the property owners. We are continuing to reach out to the property owners that have not yet responded. I think, you know, gentrification or otherwise, I think a solution does not include ignoring a safety concern and not providing access to these neighborhoods and the adjacent facilities via either a sidewalk or a trail or anything. We can't just necessarily ignore a problem in this area and not provide this.
It wasn't a problem until there was no longer a Black community, is what I'm saying. It wasn't a problem before because these people have always lived there. It was never a problem until it's a mixed community. When it's a mixed community, now it's a problem.
I mean, I don't, Miss Lily, can you chime in on this? Do you see this as a problem? I know you shared a really personal story with us at our stakeholder meeting about an individual that you knew that, you know, I think ended up passing away from an accident. If I recall correctly.
Oh no, I can answer that.
Yeah.
That's why we have a traffic light there now, because as Ms. Williams was speaking, with the influx of the new neighbors, we had increased traffic in the area, and the people would not treat our community with respect. And the guy ran the stop sign and killed one of my cousins.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
But
and again,
now that I have a chance to speak again, since there's a problem at the intersection of 6 Mile and Rifle Range Road, why don't you take the trail to Magnolia Village and bring it around?
Let's see, am I muted? Okay, I mean, the reasoning is because I mean, Rifle Range is just, they own most of that property, and they're amenable to having it run through that segment.
No. We're not even talking about that. You said that there was a problem with the FCOD in this area right here where the water plant thing, sewer stuff is at the corner of 6 Mile and Rifle Range Road. I said, if that's a problem, why not just divert to Magnolia Village around that section and come back to Rifle Range Road off of 6 Mile Road?
Yeah, because this money was specifically allocated to benefit the 6 Mile community. We can't just ignore an existing drainage concern and go around. It would actually cost more to divert, as just from a linear foot standpoint of trail system than it would be to continue logically to the signal. Going just back to good engineering practices and planning.
Well, and no further discussion, because you already answered the question. You want to put it through Magnolia Village.
Mr. Freeman, it makes absolutely no sense to go through Magnolia Village.
Oh, I say the same thing about what you're doing. It makes no sense to put this 10-lane.
Okay. Well, again, I'd like to highlight the fact over and over again that we have spoken with and will continue to reach out to the property owners who have not responded. And unequivocally, to this point, 2/3 of the trail system has been, quote unquote, approved by those property owners, given the thumbs up to proceed forward. So I hear you used to live in the 6 Mile community. These property owners up to this point, who are the ones that are impacted that you guys are most concerned about, are okay with the project. So
no.
And these concerns are not realized.
That is not true. The Dawsons and the Mazik are the ones that we're most concerned about. And you said they haven't responded yet.
Absolutely,
guys.
Well, if you have a phone number for them, I'd be more than happy to call them, meet on site with them, discuss this. Up to this point.
If they say no, then what? So if you talk to those two families and they say no, then what?
Brad, would you like to answer this?
Well,
I think we've answered that question.
Listen, everybody's got good input, and like I said, we follow the process. If we could have information that we could engage with folks and start understanding concerns and not deal in all these hypotheticals, and we can understand real concerns, then we can hopefully tailor a solution to that. That's the way we typically operate. So
I absolutely agree with you. And some of that lies in the problem of who that looks like myself or Miss Lily or Mr. Freeman or sitting at any of these tables having these discussions, because there's lots of discussions about communities that the people who are having these discussions don't know anybody from, have never lived in, don't know the history of. There's no connection there. So you're saying that decisions are being made and there's discussions being had. That's awesome. But
that's why we talk to
any of us that are being present to be able to engage in these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, that's why people have to talk to each other. I mean, that just like we are now, we would have to talk to them to understand, to get to know them, whatever
This is after the fact.
things that you're saying that I don't know about,
During
so that
the
doesn't
planning
preclude me from
process.
not being able to talk to them and understand what their perspective is.
Right, I understand, but this is an after the fact conversation. I'm talking about who is at the table that looks like myself, that's helping to come up with these plans.
There were a number of people as part of the
plans. I'm sorry, Liz, I can't hear you.
There were a number of people representing these communities as part of the comprehensive planning effort who came up with these initial plans.
As well as the Mount Pleasant Way. I mean, Miss Pearl Askew was on one of the stakeholder member meetings there before we even began the Mount Pleasant Way master plan. So there's been involvement.
Not everybody that looked like me.
Well, but when you talk with Ms. Askew, she must have missed that day or been asleep that day, because I know she doesn't want this through her community.
I beg to differ. I think there's the city CT or the CTC program for Gadsdenville Road is under design right now, which she helped spearhead.
To put a sidewalk in.
No, it's a multi-use path. It's an 8-foot multi-use path.
Guys, thank you very much. We've gone past our time. James's information is out there. You've got my information. If you have any other questions, or if we need to try to answer some questions at a different time, we of course want to try to do that. I appreciate everybody's time, and I've got an email here with the links coming out as soon as we're done with this. So thank you for your time. And we will end July 15th for the next settlement community task force meeting to talk about planning and zoning in the settlement communities.
And transportation.
And transportation. Sorry.
No problem.
Yes. And transportation.
Yeah.
And thank you for accommodating the date shift on that, because I got first thing when I came in the next morning, I had an email from the county staff saying we can't be there on the 8th. So I think it's important that they be there as well. So obviously, because we're all trying to work together on, town and county and all this. So I appreciate your accommodating that date change from to the 15th of July, 4 o'clock upstairs as usual. And if you haven't let me know, I think everybody on here has let me know, but if you haven't, just let me know for sure that you can be there. Thank you very much. And you'll have a good rest of the day. Good weekend.
Thank you.
You do the same.
Thank you.